Alright, here's a little introductory video just showing some the super basics of tinkercad. Tinkercad's a 3D modeling software. It's web-based, so you can kind of use it anywhere. It's free. If it's your first time, you're going to have to sign up. I've already signed up, so I can just sign in. Alright, this is one of the profiles I have. Actually, I have a couple set up, but up here at the top are some different things. If you want something a little more structured, if you click on Learn, there are basically little lessons that you can go through. You can see kind of all the basic skills. And they're nice. They kind of walk you through step by step how to make something. If you do a lesson and then you want to start making something, make sure you start a new drawing or new design. Don't do it in the lesson. I've had people do that and then there's no way to export it because it's not actually something that you're made until you're in a lesson. So I come here, recent designs. You can kind of see different things that I've messed around, made. If I go, I want to make something new, I'm going to click here, create new design. I'll switch and load up here. Alright, it defaults and gives it some name. It's randomly generated. You can select here and change it to something normal because they get kind of weird and funky. Some of the basic commands. If I right click the mouse, I can kind of free rotate around. This is the work plane. This is kind of where you'll bring pieces and stuff in. If you're using a Chromebook, you may be able to right click with the mouse pad and move around. It's a little bit easier with the mouse, but you can also click this cube here and move around objects that way. And you can zoom in, zoom out. If you click home view, it'll snap back to here. Alright, bringing shapes in. Basically, this is all based on geometric shapes. So, like boxes, pyramids, different things like that. If I want to bring something in, I click, then click to place it. Once I have it in, I can adjust sizes here. I can also adjust it on the actual object. If I click on these white handles, I can stretch and make it bigger one way, both ways. If I hold shift and do that, it'll do it symmetric so that they'll both get enlarged at the same ratio. If I click on this one, I can make it taller. If I click on this black arrow, I can bring it up into space. If you have something up in space and you want to get it onto the surface, hit the letter D and it will drop it onto the work plane. These little arrows here are for rotation. If I click on them, if I keep my mouse inside of this circle, it's going to jump by 22.5 degrees. If I bring it out, I can go 1 degree at a time. And it rotates all the different axes here. Rotate this way, move it a little bit, and I can rotate this way. Alright, so I have a shape in here. Let's say I want to cut a hole through it. Let me do it this way. I'll bring a cylinder in, stretch it up so it'll cut the whole way through. I can also use mouse keys to move the pieces. So I have it inside of the first box I did. Now to cut, instead of hearing this little pop up, instead of it being a solid, if I click that's a hole. Now I can kind of see this as an object. It's the diagonal lines going through it. It's there, but it's not really cut yet. if I hold shift and click on both pieces and come up here to group, when I group, then it will actually cut and subtract that from the original. So these are kind of the basic shapes. Tells you basic shapes. There's different things that you can do: symbols, connectors, community created ones, text. When you're placing stuff, you can move where the work plane is. So let's say I wanted to put a letter A here on the side of this box. I could bring it in, and I could rotate it up, and I could move it and try and place it on the side there. I could move it up here. I could do it that way. Or I click work plane and click on this face, it moves the work plane there. Click and place it. If you want to get the work plane back to where it was, click on the work plane button, click down here, and it'll jump back to where it originally was. Now, another thing I want to show is aligning objects. So let me go back to basic shapes. Let's say here, hold shift, scale it up. Alright, let's say I want this to be a hole, and I want it to be dead center in the middle of that cylinder. Best way to do it, you could move it spot by spot. Every time you hit the arrow button, depending on your numbers here, is how far it jumps. So every time you do it, it jumps 1 millimeter. There's an easier way. If I click on this object, hold shift, click on the other one so I have them both selected, I can click align. Once I do that, I get all these little black dots. Basically, this is how I can align stuff. On this face, if I want the back edges aligned, if I want the front edges aligned, or do I want the centers aligned? I want the centers aligned, so I move it that way. This way, do I want aligned to the right, aligned to the left, or in the middle? I want it in the middle. And then this one, I want everything flat on that face, so that one's already pre-selected for me. Once I do that, select both, do my group, and it'll cut through. Alright. If you ever want to break stuff apart, if I select this and do ungroup, they'll break it apart. So it's kind of like undo, but you don't have to do it in order. Now, speaking of undo and redo, here you can undo stuff you did. You can go back to whatever point you need to. Once you create your object, I always try and group everything so it's one solid object. Once you have your piece made, you can export it. Alright, so let's say I have my pieces made. Let me group these again. Alright, so I have my pieces made here. I want to export them. If I come here, click export, I can either choose everything in design or selected shapes. If I just want to do just one piece of this, so let's say I just wanted to export this piece by itself. I select it, it automatically did it for me, the selected shape, and then to 3D print, I'm going to do it in STL. If I click here, it pops up down here. You can see the name is the same here. Once you have this file, then you can bring that into MakerBot Desktop, MakerBot Print, depending on what you're using, what you're trying to do. So that's kind of the basics of tinkercad. One more quick thing before I forget. Right here, the edit grid button. I talked about the snap grid here, where everything kind of jumps to. I can change the units. I can change it to inches, and I can change the size of this work plane. This is kind of what it defaults to, which is fine for now. But just try and keep that in mind that you can change it. If I go to inches, click update grid, my snap grid here changes to, so instead of jumping every 1 millimeter, now it jumps every eighth of an inch. Again, I can kind of fine tune that. If you want to turn it completely off, you can, but that's kind of how it jumps. So like if I just go half inch, I want to change this, it's going to jump a half inch at a time. If I turn it to off, then it just moves smoothly, and then you're going to get some really kind of goofy numbers as far as decimal wise out here. It's already kind of goofy because I went from millimeters to inches, but that's pretty much everything.